On May 28, 2023, a commercial aircraft lifted off from Shanghai Pudong International Airport. Nothing unusual about that, except this plane wasn't a Boeing. It wasn't an Airbus. It was Chinese. Built in China, engineered in China, certified in China. That plane was the COMAC C919, and its existence rewrites everything you thought you knew about who controls the skies. For 70 years, commercial aviation has been a two-horse race. Boeing versus Airbus, America versus Europe. Two giants splitting a trillion-dollar industry, and nobody else was getting a slice. Then China walked in. Without knocking, the C919 didn't come out of nowhere. China spent over 15 years and north of $70 billion building it, hiding the real scale of the ambition behind vague state announcements and factory walls. The Western press barely covered it. Industry analysts called it a vanity project. A few people even laughed. Nobody's laughing now. So today, how exactly did China build a Boeing killer? And is it actually going to work? To understand the C919, you have to rewind to the 1980s. Because this story doesn't start in a factory, it starts with humiliation. For decades, China's domestic airlines flew almost exclusively on Western planes. Every Boeing 737 that touched down in Beijing carried the same silent message. China could build rockets, nuclear weapons, satellites, but it could not build a competitive commercial jet. So in 2008, Beijing created COMAC, the Commercial Aircraft Corporation of China. State-backed, state-funded, one mission: end China's dependency on foreign aircraft manufacturers. China was importing roughly 90% of its commercial aircraft. In the fastest-growing aviation market on the planet, that is an extraordinary strategic vulnerability. Every plane ticket sold in China was partly a check written to Seattle or Toulouse. Beijing decided that era was over, but building a commercial aircraft from scratch might be the single most complex engineering challenge a country can attempt, and China had a problem nobody wanted to say out loud. The C919 looks Chinese. It is Chinese. But open the hood, and the story gets complicated. The engines? CFM International, American French. The avionics? Honeywell and Rockwell Collins. The landing gear? Safran. The flight control computers? Parker Aerospace. In its original configuration, the C919 was essentially a Chinese airframe wrapped around Western components. You might think, so what? Airbus sources parts across Europe. Boeing's supply chain spans dozens of countries. That's just how aerospace works. True. But if you're building a plane specifically to escape dependence on Western manufacturers, and your critical systems are built by Western manufacturers, you haven't solved the problem. You've repackaged it. Beijing understood this, which is why, running quietly alongside the C919, China was building something else. A domestic engine, domestic avionics, domestic materials research. The C919 was never the end goal. It was the training exercise. China used its own airline market as a laboratory. Get the plane certified, get it flying. Learn what real-world operations demand. Then replace the Western components one by one. It is one of the most patient industrial strategies in modern history. Getting a commercial aircraft certified is not a bureaucratic inconvenience. It is a full-scale war. The FAA process, and EASA in Europe, is deliberately brutal. Thousands of hours of testing, redundancy checks on redundancy checks, stress testing to destruction. China got the C919 certified by its own regulator, the CAAC, in September 2022. In May 2023, it entered commercial service with China Eastern Airlines. That part worked. Here's the part that hasn't. FAA and EASA certification, the international stamp that allows the C919 to be sold outside China. Without it, COMAC can sell to Chinese carriers and pretty much nobody else. And the delays keep stacking, because Washington-Beijing tensions have turned certification into a geopolitical negotiation as much as an engineering one. But here's the twist. COMAC doesn't need FAA certification right now because the market China is targeting first isn't America. It isn't Europe. China has 1.4 billion people, an aviation market that will likely be the largest in the world within 15 years, and a state apparatus that can instruct its domestic carriers to buy Chinese planes. Air China, China Eastern, China Southern, some of the largest airlines on Earth. Future fleet expansions should favor the C919. That message is extremely clear. Boeing had hundreds of planes on order from Chinese carriers. Some are now frozen, some quietly redirected. The trade war did something pure competition never could. It made buying Boeing politically uncomfortable for Chinese state enterprises. And beyond China, COMAC is targeting the global South, countries across Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America, where price is the primary decision factor and a credible alternative to Boeing and Airbus has never existed. COMAC can offer planes at state-subsidized prices Western manufacturers structurally cannot match. This is where the Boeing killer framing becomes genuinely credible. Not because the C919 is technically superior, it probably isn't. But COMAC doesn't need to win on engineering. It needs to win on access, price, and geopolitical alignment. 4 real problems, though. Production rate, a handful of planes per year versus hundreds from Boeing and Airbus. The engine, the domestic CJ1000A replacement, is still in development. Maintenance, COMAC is building a global service infrastructure from zero. And trust, in aviation, new is always a very hard sell. None of these are unsolvable, but all 4 on the same timeline is a serious burden. The C919 is not replacing Boeing and Airbus next year, but calling this a vanity project is catastrophically wrong. China has built a certified commercial aircraft, flying paying passengers, with a domestic order book of over 1,000 units. They already built the first draft. The question is whether they can scale it, certify it globally, and support it internationally before the window closes. That answer, genuinely, nobody knows yet. If you want more of this, subscribe. And the Boeing side of this story is the next video up.